speaking of how the NFL handles these controversial situations, we have our man, Mr. Colin Kaepernick. So let me just tell you, I have to say, before we even get into our thoughts on his entire situation, and just so you both know, our official question is, should he have a job in the NFL right now? Should he still have a job? Let me say this before we even dive into that. What I've seen of Colin Kaepernick is impressive. And it's impressive because a lot of athletes have the forum to be vocal about these subjects, but they do the bare minimum. If nothing else, I feel like Colin has done more than the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. But with that, so our specific question, should he have a job in the NFL right now? I think I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to say, skill-wise, I don't know. I am on the fence because I think prior to this incident, there was evidence of Colin's skill set deteriorating. Okay, these are my thoughts on just him being a QB. Now, granted, that was at a time where his overall team, the 49ers, had some major areas for improvement to work on. But it's that part of it, it's skill set, where I'm teetering. Should he have a job as far as his political views? Well, for me, there's no question of absolutely. Because this man actually consulted with a veteran about the appropriate way to showcase his standpoint on injustice for the Black man and woman in America. His initial thought was that he was going to sit. He was going to sit for the national anthem. And he consulted with a veteran friend of his that said, hey, you know what? Sitting is actually more disrespectful to us than kneeling. What we do is we kneel. Kneel is better. So he got that advice from a veteran. And so from the political perspective of it, I say absolutely. If this man had the appropriate skill set to still be a quarterback in the NFL today, he should absolutely be a quarterback in the NFL today.
So I really want to touch on this because this is the one that I've been really wanting this Kaepernick story so badly and really wanting to share, because I follow this thing a lot and I've been waiting for this. And this is, I would tell everyone this, I would say everyone like strap in and buckle your seatbelts for this one. All right. So first things first and whatnot. So it's very interesting that you said, that he took a veteran's advice to actually kneel. Him kneeling is something I wasn't for. If he would have sat down, like how Marshall Lynch sat down, I would have been okay with it. And the reason why I'm saying this, because when you look at the etymology of the word kneeling or kneel, it basically means to go down. So that's a form of submission. That basically means that I'm giving up. If he would have sat down, all right, which the etymology of the word sit, which means to refrain, settle, encamp, and lie in wait. If you notice, after the whole Colin Kaepernick situation, Marshawn Lynch sat down for the national anthem. Marshawn Lynch didn't get blackballed. He did leave that final season, but he got a call from the Seahawks when all the running backs went out, I think in 2018 or 19, when they went to the playoffs, and they cut him a check to go play. And if Marshawn Lynch wants to go back to the NFL, I feel like he can, if he wants to, it is. but he probably doesn't, you know, because he don't really need to, because he's made a good chunk of change from them anyway, you know. And even looking at Colin Kaepernick and whatnot, and like him losing his skill set, it's interesting you say that, because the whole story and narrative behind the thing about Colin Kaepernick was, you know, well, you know, I made the playoffs, we got the team to the Super Bowl and we lost, but yet Mike Glennon, who was at that time the starting QB for the Chicago Bears, got 19 million off his deal, and he barely even started in the NFL and whatnot. And yes, he's a white European also too, but he didn't even start that much in the NFL. He played mostly backup. I think he only started like when he played for Tampa Bay, but that was about it. But a guy who hasn't even been to the Super Bowl, you know, hadn't even have a winning record. Colin Kaepernick had one and whatnot. Got paid 19 million to start, you know, and that's what the NFL was pushing so much, you know, you know. At the end of the day, he did get his deal. He didn't finish it, you know, and you know, his skill set deteriorated, and then basically, you know, he basically, he got released and whatnot. And then, you know, he asked for 20 million. He didn't get 20. He got the same. I think he got like 17, I think. I think it was 17 or 18 or close to 19, but it wasn't 20. But, you know, he left the NFL and whatnot. He got released and whatnot. But when I checked upon, like, you know, what his network is, he makes 20 million a year since last 2020 and 2019 and currently 2021. So, you know, he's not even playing the NFL, but he got the money that he wants. And he still has the same Nike deal that he got when he first signed with the 49ers and whatnot. So, and I just saw something else also interesting, that when Colin Kaepernick signed his Nike, you know, endorsement deal, the following year, the NFL became a sponsor for Nike and started making all their jerseys and whatnot, which I thought that was kind of odd and weird also too, you know? So towards like Colin Kaepernick, like going back to the NFL, I don't think he needs to go back. And I don't think he wants to go back, you know? Yeah. He's already created a brand bigger than the NFL to the point where like I can make more money not playing football, but being more of a public figure now than me playing in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he really cares, to be honest.
Good point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think, you know, based on what we've seen of his behavior since he has not been a quarterback, you know, he still kept up with all of his, you know, basically commitments to making a difference, right? He's out there, you know, practicing, going around to different boys and girls clubs, practicing with the kids, you know, supporting and sponsoring youth programs, after school programs, so kids are out of the streets, and, you know, negotiating, or I'm going to say instead of negotiating, being a part of conversations, you know, with law enforcement and with community leaders and et cetera, about the appropriate way to police our communities. And all of that to me speaks to, you know, what I was saying at the beginning of my viewpoint, that he has shown me that kneeling wasn't about the spectacle it was going to cause. You know what I mean? This man had gotten to the point where he could no longer sit by and not use the forum that he had available to him to speak against all this injustice. He said, you know, we have this platform. I'm going to use this platform to bring the appropriate amount of attention to what we are experiencing. I mean, it's the same thing with, you know, Muhammad Ali deciding, hey, why do I need to go, you know, into the war? And forgive me, I can't remember whether it was Vietnam or Korea, But why I'm going to
Vietnam.
go over there, yeah,
Vietnam.
thank you, and kill these people who, you know, have done nothing against me, right? And he used his celebrity, he used being Muhammad Ali, he used that voice to say, you know, I'm gonna take this stand, I'm gonna do this not just as a famous boxer, but as a Black man who's tired of it, you know, he reached the point where he was like, no, I've had enough of this. I have this forum to get my viewpoint across. I have this forum to bring the appropriate attention to this situation. I'm going to do it. And I think that's definitely what Colin did. I think he got to his breaking point. I think he said, you know, I'm Colin Kaepernick, I'm a QB in the NFL. This is the, you know, this is the largest platform that I could have available to me to make this argument, to bring the appropriate attention to this situation. I think he took it. I think it was the right thing to do. I think it's evident in his behavior post being an NFL quarterback. I do think, though, if that man's skill set is still there, which I haven't seen all the videos, but I've heard that there are plenty of videos where he's, you know, still throwing the ball 100 yards down the field and etc. That man's skill set is there. There's no question that he should have a job.
The big question is, does he want a job? That's the big question.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's a great point.
That's the big question.
right.
Because I doubt it. He wants to play in the NFL. I doubt it. You know, just and the reason why I'm saying this because it's like since Colin Kaepernick has left the NFL, there were tons and tons and tons of opportunities where NFL teams needed a QB. Actually needed one. And, you know, they refused to, like, you know, give him a call. That just shows basically how it's business as usual at the NFL, you know, because I was laughing all those years and be like, you signed him? I'm like, he's not a bad QB, but if you want to win, you got somebody who has a very high skill set that has a good resume on, you know, getting you somewhere versus as somebody who's been like a normal backup in the NFL and or you have somebody who played somewhere who hasn't done anything, but yet you want to keep using, you know, players that are just not going to work well with you guys going on if you choose to go to the playoff. But it seems, you know, ticket sales and all that stuff, it means a whole lot well because you got to keep that money flowing. But it seems like, you know, the eye on the prize don't mean anything to certain teams. So I'm like, I don't get it. But then I was like, I probably now got it years now than then because I was so into, you know, rooting for other teams to go to the playoff because I wanted everyone to have a good fair chance. But it seems like they really didn't care. So, you know, it's just basically a sense. Does Colin Kaepernick really want a job? I don't think he really wants one. I think he's living 10 times better not being in the NFL until now, you know? And I think when that was going on, I think someone made a case that because Colin Kaepernick, I think he was adopted into a family. I got to read up on that. But it seems like that was the big thing being thrown around during that time, you know, that, oh, he doesn't know about like, you know, the issues, you know, as what they like to say towards, I only like to use the word black, but what black people, you know, tend to go through daily. People say they don't feel that Mr. Colin Kaepernick doesn't know or feel because he's been adopted into a well-privileged family. I
Mhm.
was like, man, I tell people you wouldn't even know many people's stories if you don't even talk to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
He's
True.
there's a
always
lot of people.
identified as a black man, though. They what they do know, according to my understanding, what they do know is that he is of black descent, at least from his father. I think they heard it was or they said it was his biological father, but I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to research that. But at any rate, Colin has always said when they used to question him about his ethnicity that he doesn't know, but he knows he's a black man. That's always been his response.
Okay.
So for me, it's interesting because it's like, even if you even if you were going to say, hey, you don't know that for certain, we know he's a minority, right? And I'm not saying that minorities have the exact same path because they're minorities, because I think people are treated differently, even within the minority world, right? Are ranked differently. But at the same time, what that tells me is that there had to be a certain level of legitimacy about the disdain he felt for the injustices that were happening against Black people. And so for me, the question of, does he even understand what we're going through? Absolutely. This is someone who identifies as a minority, particularly a Black man himself. And so for me, that question is interesting. It's almost like an excuse to ignore the major steps that he took to bring attention to that issue. That's what that question feels like to me. Does he even understand what we're going through? I mean, at the end of the day, there are minorities who, go through similar, for instance, Hispanics. That's why, and not to digress here, Hispanic Trump supporters are always a very interesting set of folks to me. Because that man made it absolutely evident that he has this, at least an equal amount of disdain for them as he does, Black Americans. And so with that said, with Colin Kaepernick relating that back, Colin identifies as a Black man. That's a minority. Even if he's not a Black man, which that is not been his lineage, to my understanding, has not ever been specifically identified. At the end of the day, asking the question of what does he know about it? It sounds like a cop out to not having to completely support what he did to me, especially for those folks who really love the NFL, who
Yeah.
don't want to have to stop watching.
Right. I agree.
I mean,
You guys, y'all made some great points. I mean, there's nothing much that I could really even add to what you guys said. The only thing I would say, I guess, just to kind of, make sure I get, I guess, my opinion across. But it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty, 1 + 2 = 3. 2 + 2 = 4. If, like with the NFL and Kaepernick, if he's able to perform his job, if he's able to do his job at the level that he needs to do it at, or better, then yeah, he should absolutely get his job back. To me, that's just a no-brainer. But I do understand that the protest, which this was, that definitely created conflict. It just created all this conflict. And like, it goes back to what I said earlier about NFL being right wing, and NBA being left wing, because I think if had Colin Kaepernick been an NBA player, for example, there wouldn't be this much of a backlash. Because if you look at somebody like LeBron James, for example, he speaks out against racial injustice. a lot, and there's really no heavy backlash, if any at all, against him.
He's
And
an
I really,
asshole.
hey, I fuck with LeBron, but I know that's like a whole nother discussion. But no, I think I kind of see what you're saying on that. But yeah, just go back to what I was saying about left wing, right wing. The thing is, NFL, for the most part, it aligns with conservatives, with conservative views. I just think that organization, they're not really, about or for, things like racial and like fighting against racial injustice. That's just something they're not, and that's just something they're not. I don't think they have an interest in. And even if it's not the organization itself, the fans, who are a lot of conservatives, they don't give a fuck about any of that. Like fighting racial injustice, they don't care about that.
It don't mean nothing to him.
Right, it doesn't mean anything to them. So yeah, when Kaepernick protests, yeah, they're upset about it because it's is distracting from, I guess the sport, and then they're like, yeah, it's just this big distraction that we don't need. We just want to watch football. We don't give a fuck about, police out there shooting unarmed Black people, racial injustice. We don't care about that. Some fans will care because, I mean, they're all not the same, obviously, but a lot of them, they don't care. They just want to watch their football. And when somebody's protesting and they take it into that racial arena, yeah, people are getting upset about that. So I feel like he should get his job back if he's skilled enough, if he could still play at a certain level. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think they want to give it to him back because of all the for lack of a better word, chaos that I guess they feel that he caused. I don't think the NFL wants him back, And the thing is, Kaepernick doesn't need the NFL. I mean, you guys said it, and I agree with you guys. I mean, it's not like he actually needs the NFL. Kaepernick, just his name alone is big enough for him to just do his own thing. And I've told some of the homies, who are big into football, that I was like, wow, he just needs to do his own thing. He doesn't need to go back to the NFL. He can protest, do his thing, and Colin Kaepernick is its own brand at this point. He doesn't need the NFL. That's just my thoughts on it.
Because he got Nike already. Nike taking good care of him. I can't blame
Nike cutting checks.
I'm sorry. Nike taking good care of him. So it wouldn't even make a difference, But that's just
good point, gentlemen.
But yeah, the NFL is a conservative, type of, situation, and that sport has not changed at all, hasn't changed one bit at all, because I told everyone when people are watching football, they're watching to see a receiver catches the ball, get hit down the middle, a running back getting smacked by a linebacker, QBs, make throwing the ball where the receiver's making these clutch catches, and making it almost like a gridiron fight and whatnot, that's what people are paying, not for the NFL network, but for the whole NFL packages to watch the games. That's what they want. They want their money's worth, That's what they're coming in to get, That's what they want, and that's what they're going to get every single time, because that's the value that they see from the NFL. It's not about Colin Kaepernick, trying to speak about any type of, reform, because players done it and it has gone nowhere, and there's nothing he's not going to change about. Because, like I said earlier before, in the whole podcast, it's always going to be NFL business as usual,
Yep, business as usual.
And it hasn't changed. And even when you look at the whole Eric Garner thing and whatnot, when they used to, when they say, "Oh, I can't breathe," right? What did the NBA do? They all had shirts, they were dancing, they made it a whole spectacle and whatnot, to show that, we respect this and, we need change from this. What did the NFL do that week? Well, they had their few games at 1 o'clock, 4 p.m., and they had, their 8 o'clock game as usual, and nobody said anything at all about it, because, you get what you get, what you pay for, and, the NFL is not changing their formula. And they state, and Roger Goodell don't have to state it, it's already been documented, like shown, like it's seen by everyone. Everyone knows this, because if you start talking something political while they're watching football, what do you think your homie's going to do? Look at you crazy, thinking you stupid, you shouldn't be talking about this, man. The game's on, talk about this later and whatnot, Then when it hits Tuesday, then you can have a friendly conversation. They'll be like, nah, I don't want to talk to you, because they don't mean shit right now. So it's never going to change, and they're always going to keep it the same, And I'm just leaving that. I'm already putting out my final thought because I don't even want to even go any deeper than I've already shared already. All right.
All right.
Great points there. Okay, so do we feel like we've already shared our final thoughts, or we want to go ahead and do an official wrap up on the question of, should he have a job in the NFL right now? I'm just going to go ahead and say, if it was what he wanted and if the skill set was there, I say absolutely. But I do appreciate the efforts that he's put in since he's left the NFL, because I think he was, one of those folks who voice their opinion, stand by it, mean it, want to see an actual change in injustice against Black Americans. Pat?
Yeah, I pretty much feel how you feel. What I would add, just for a quick final thought, is if his skill set is there and he wants to go back, then yeah, the NFL should give him a job. But personally, I don't think he should even mess with the NFL anymore. The NFL and Colin Kaepernick just needs to stay going their separate ways. Obviously the NFL feels like they don't need him. And, it seems like Colin Kaepernick feels he doesn't need the NFL. So, I think it should just stay that way, because my thing is, if Colin Kaepernick has this message and this stance, this strong stance that he's been very consistent with, the NFL going back to an NFL, I think in a way would be counterproductive, because then he's not going to be able to keep protesting and keep, his strong stance. He's not going to be able to keep that up, because it's just going to continue to clash. It's just going to continue to clash with just the whole NFL organization and their image. So I just think they need to just stay away from each other. Those are my thoughts.
I just got one quick thing. I don't know if there's somebody out there that could reach Colin Kaepernick. I'll tell him this. What he should do is, if he gets a chance to go back, back to the 49er stadium, all he needs to do is just stand right there in the center of the middle of the field, play Jim Jones ballin', and just walk off the field and never look back. That'll be the best thing, so he can enjoy his sunset, because no matter what, it's just crazy how at the end of the day he won, and I'm not even mad at the guy. I can't be. You build a really good relationship with Nike. Nike took care of you, and since then, and I think also he got a disclosure, like, payout agreement, I believe, from the NFL on top of that. So in a way, how can you be mad?
Right, right. I agree.
I totally agree there. I think you both made great points. And, I think at the end of the day, only time will tell. Hopefully, Colin is happy in the decisions that he's made, which it does seem to be the case. So I'm very excited to see what Mr. Kaepernick brings to the Black community in the future.